Hello and welcome. This is History from 2, and the first topic that we are going to look at is the Iron Age in Central Africa. Iron Age in Central Africa. Now we are going to start with the definition of terms. Definition of terms. Let's try to define Iron Age. Iron Age, it refers to the period in history when man began to make and use iron tools. I'll take that again. It refers to the period in history when man began to make and use iron tools. So Iron Age replaced Stone Age. So when we say Stone Age, it is the period when man used tools made from stones, when the period when people were using stones for their day-to-day activities. Another term that we are going to meet as we explore this topic is archaeology. Let's define it. Archaeology is the study of remains left behind by the ancient people. The study of remains left behind by ancient people, or it can also refer to the study of human history and prehistory through excavation of sites and analysis of physical remains. That is, we talk of artifacts. The study of things, you dig out things, then you find the things that were being used, and that one we call it archaeology. So in short, it is the study of remains left behind by ancient people. The things that people were using previously or before us, or in ancient times. If we dig down, we find those things, then the process of doing that is called archaeology. Artifacts. We have already mentioned the artifacts. So we have already looked at the artifacts. So let's try to define artifacts. So artifacts, they are objects made or given shape by people which are excavated or dug by archaeologists at a site. So the example can be broken pots, human bones, beads, hunting tools, and many others. We talk of the objects that are made by people or that are given a certain shape by people which were being used. So here archaeology is the study of history through the digging of the remains. When we talk of artifacts, they are now the remains, those things that people were using. That one, those things, they are the artifacts. So you have to differentiate between the two, archaeology as well as artifacts. Archaeology, the study of the remains. But artifacts, they are now those remains. That's why we have mentioned artifacts here, because archaeology, it mainly you study the remains, the artifacts. So the artifacts, they are the objects or the remains that are left by people which were used, and they are dug out by archaeologists. Now, let us look at the origin of iron culture or iron working culture. The Anatolia, modern day we talk of Turkey, was the first nation or first country, first society to melt iron in 1500 BC or 1500 BC, with its people called the Hittites being the first in the world to smelt iron. So we're talking of Turkey or the Anatolia. So they were the first people, the Turkish or the Anatolia, and the people themselves, they were called the Hittites. They were the first to make iron, to smelt iron in around or from around 1500 BC. Later on, after the Hittites, the Assyrians, who were the neighbors of the Hittites, living in what is today Iraq, they learned the use of iron. So we see from the Anatolia or the Hittites, now that technology or that culture now went to modern day Iraq, which was called Assyrians, the Assyrians. So then the Assyrians spread the use of iron to Africa in around 670 BC, in around 670 BC, when they defeated the Cushites who ruled Egypt. So in around 670 BC, the Cushites or the Assyrians, they invaded Egypt. They invaded Egypt. By then, Egypt was ruled by the Cushites. So that one, during that time, the Cushites, they lost the battle with the Assyrians because the Cushites, they were using just the wooden weapons and the like, not the bows and arrows as such, but they were just using the wooden weapons, while the Assyrians, they were using spears now, pangas, knives made from iron. Hence, the Assyrians, they won and they defeated Egypt in 670 BC. Therefore, the Cushites learned about smelting iron from the Assyrians and spread from Kush to West Africa, Southeast and Central Africa. So you can see how this iron working technology spread from Turkey to Central Africa through different people or at different times. Now, let us look at the ways through which Iron Age culture spread. How did iron working technology or iron working culture spread? Number one, it was through migration. It was through migration. So as people moved from one place to another, they carried with them the ideas about iron working. So we are saying when people were moving and they could move with their ideas, just as today. What you know, when you move with what you know. Then wherever you go, you always do what you know. So when people were moving from one place to the other, then they carried with them ironworking ideas. So for example, I've said that it started with the Hittites in Turkey, the Anatolia. From there, the Assyrians who are in the Iraq. Then from there, the Assyrians, they transferred to the Kushites. From Kush, then West Africa. From West Africa, it spread to East as well as Central Africa. Through migration, as people were moving, they could also copy, just as it is today. When people move from one place to the other, wherever they go, we learn something. Wherever we go, we learn something. Then we can do that something elsewhere whenever we move. And the other way through which Iron Age culture spread was through trade, So as people moved and traded, they exchanged items as well as ideas, which were easily copied. So when people were moving, the reason for moving, basically, sometimes it was trade, moving from one place to the other to trade. When they went there, they could find other ideas. Therefore, apart from exchanging the goods, people were also exchanging the ideas. So through trade, Iron Age culture also, it was easily copied from one society to the other. Also, intermarriages. Intermarriages was another way through which Iron Age culture spread. So as people intermarried, they could easily share ideas about iron smelting. So when people were marrying, just as it is today, when someone from Karonga marries someone from Nsanje, it means they will not only get married, but also ideas there will be exchanged. The one from Sanje will learn something from Kalonga, and the same way with someone from Kalonga. He will learn something from Sanje. So in so doing, the people exchange ideas. So we are saying Iron Age ideas also spread through intermarriages. As people were intermarrying into other societies, then they were able to get or to copy Iron Age culture. Also through warfare. It was also another way. So some people became so ambitious and wanted to expand their territories or control trade. Just as we have seen that the Assyrians, when they came to Egypt, which was ruled by the Cushites by then, they wanted to expand their territory. Now you saw to it that the Cushites, they lost the battle because they were weak in terms of the weapons they were using. So with that then, we see to it that through that warfare, those ideas are also spread to say, all right, with these strong weapons, then we are going to expand our territory. So people were embarking on gathering or having new ideas. How best do we expand our territories? In so doing, they could also learn how to make other things. And Iron Age culture also spread through the warfare. So as they were waging the war on other communities, then they could also exchange the ideas. And on the other hand, all the defeated people, they were forced to adopt the new culture of the conquerors. As a result, even Iron Age culture could also spread in that way. Now, let us look at the life of early man before Iron Age period. So here we are going to look at the Stone Age. So in the Stone Age, people who lived during this period were people like the Bushmen, locally known as the Akafula or Abat, who are also called the Mandone Rabat. So those people, they were people who were living before Iron Age. We can say they were the Stone Age people. They were using stones as the implements. So these people, they used crude stones. They were using stones in their day-to-day activities. So later on, they began to refine these stone tools so that they could do better work. So as time went by, then they started to improve those stones and shape them like an axe, like a hoe, like that. So, but at first they were just getting the stone and maybe scratching the ground, and that was farming to them, something like that. So later on, they began to refine those things. So these people, they lived in smaller groups and were nomadic. That is, they were moving from one place to the other. So basically, they were nomadic. They were wanderers. They were just moving from one place to another because they did not have permanent things to rely on. As population therefore increased, they faced the crisis of exhaustion of resources. So as they were swelling in numbers, we're talking of the early people before the the Iron Age. As they were increasing in numbers, then the resources became scarce. Therefore, it means that they were facing those problems. So eventually, these people made a revolutionary discovery of domesticating plants and animals to produce foods. So they started to domesticate some animals as well as plants, to say wild plants. Now they started planting them near them, then they could harvest things like those. And animals, the same way, they could get the wild animals and train them until they become docile, then they could tame them or rear them at home. Through crisis, human beings improved their crude implements into refined ones, from food gatherers to farmers who settled and grew on food or went out to hunt, yet returned to their settled homes. So what we are saying here is that those challenges, they forced the people now to start maybe improving their ways of life. So we are saying that they refined the stones or their implements, and now they were farming instead of just gathering the fruits, and they were settling, and they were hunting still. And when they were hunting, they could come back to their homes because they were growing their foods. So they stopped living the nomadic life, a wanderer's life, here today, there tomorrow. No. So it happened that as time went by, they started to live a settled life. Seemingly, human beings have just been improving on these tools made by earlier generations. So today, the things that we use, mainly we have been improving on those things that were started from just stones, and improvement has been going bit by bit. So even today, we have just improved on those things that were started by early human beings. Therefore, we can state comfortably that Iron Age people refined the tools of Stone Age people. So when we talk of Iron Age now, we will be talking of the people who just improved the tools that were already started by the Stone Age people. So things did not start with the Iron Age, but ideas started with the Stone Age, who started, at least wanted to have things to use so that they improve their lives. So which people were responsible for the spread of Iron Age culture to Central Africa? So that is the big question we have to ask, because we have said that from the Assyrians, or from Turkey, the Assyrians, we know how it went up to Egypt. But from there it went to West Africa, maybe through trade. But how did iron working culture spread into Central Africa? So historians, they believe that it was the Bantu who brought Iron Age culture to Central Africa. So historians, they say no, they were the Bantu who brought the iron working culture into Central Africa. But what evidence do we have to show that the Bantu were the ones who brought this Iron Age culture? Number one, the Bantu expansion and spread of Iron Age culture began affecting Central Africa at the same time, that is between 200 and 1000 AD. So the Bantu expansion and spread of Iron Age culture began affecting Central Africa at the same time. So we are saying that when the Bantu society started to expand, when the Bantu started to migrate, it was still at that time when iron started to be spotted in some parts of Central Africa. For that reason, we see to it that maybe they were the Bantu, as they were moving, as they started to expand, they were the ones who also were spreading the iron working culture. Physical analysis of human bones discovered on various Iron Age sites revealed that majority were the Bantus. So when historians, archaeologists, they go to they excavate some of the sites, they find that when they study maybe the bones of people, they find that these are the Bantu. But in those areas, they also find the iron. So therefore, it is a good conclusion to say maybe for sure these Bantu were the ones who spread iron working culture to Central Africa. So the use of iron tools, which brought in farming, which in turn led to the permanent settlement in two ways. So we are saying that the use of iron tools, which brought in farming, which in turn led to the permanent settlement in two ways. So we are basically saying that the use of tools introduced farming, and that farming now it led to the permanent settlement. So there are two ways in which we are going to justify this. Number one, we are saying that now people produced enough food, and hence there was no need to wander about in search of food. Remember, we just said that the people were moving from place to place. They were moving to gather fruits or to hunt, and they did not have permanent settlement during that Stone Age. But then the introduction of iron tools, now it brought in farming. And that farming, on the other hand, it led to the permanent settlement. Why? Number one, we're saying that people now were producing enough food, because earlier on they were moving to look for fruits for food, but they were growing those food, they were farming. Therefore, there was no need to move from place to place, and they were living permanently. Number two, we are saying that they had to live at one place to take care of their crops. Now, they had no reason to wander about or to move from one place to another. Why? Because they had grown the crops. So with the tools, they were growing tools now with good care, and they were waiting patiently for the harvest. So they had to live at one place for quite long to wait for the harvest. So here we are saying that tools therefore introduced farming, and that farming led to the permanent settlement. Now let's look at the evidence that Iron Age or Iron and Stone Age people depended on each other. There is a great evidence that the Iron Age people and Stone Age people, they depended on each other. That's why we have said that the tools that we are using now, they started with the Iron Age, the Stone Age people. There is just an advancement. So what is the relationship between the Iron Age and Stone Age people? There is that evidence that these two, they depend on each other. Number one, so to begin with, we are saying that when the Bantu-speaking people migrated into Central Africa, they either displaced the Stone Age hunters or simply absorbed them into their communities through peaceful coexistence. So we are saying that because we have said that the Bantu, there is evidence that the Bantu were the ones who introduced iron working culture. Now there is that evidence to say, right, when they migrated in, it might be that either they displaced those the people, the Stone Age hunters, like the Abatwa, Gafura, the case of Malawi, they displaced them, or else they lived with them peacefully. That is to coexist. To coexist is to live together with different people living together. That is coexistence. So this led to the dying of the weaker elements of the two cultures, while some were merged, such that a new culture was born. So what happened was that when the Bantu came in and found the Stone Age people, they coexisted. So what meant that the things that the Bantu were doing that were good, they maintained, and the things that maybe the Agafura were doing, they also maintained. But the other things that were weak, that were not good, then they were left out for both sides. That's why we are saying that when the two cultures came together, then they merged. To merge is to unite, or so the culture merged. That is this culture and this culture coming together. That is merging. So from there, then a new culture was born. So therefore, there is that evidence to say these two depended on each other. Number one, Iron Age skills on shaping tools originated from Stone Age practices. For example, the hand axe made of stone is similar to the shape of the most of the modern axes. So it is evidence to say, yes, Iron Age depended on Stone Age culture. The shape of the axes also are also the same, also like the shape of the stone axe. So with that, then we see to it that they depended on each other. Number two, Iron Age people relied on Stone Age people in identifying the hunting areas as well as the use of herbal medicine. So this is because the Stone Age people were familiar with most of the areas due to their nomadic life. So we see to it that the Iron Age people, when they came in, they depended much on the Stone Age people, because those Stone Age people, they were living a wandering life, here today, there tomorrow. So they knew most of the places. And even when we talk of herbal medicine, they could know to say, you are looking for this tree, it is there. You are looking for this herbal, it is there, because they knew most of the places, because they kept on moving from place to place. So in so doing, we are saying that they depended on each other. Number 3, we are saying that Stone Age people relied on Iron Age people on economy and technology. That is making iron implements and pottery and even farming. So the Stone Age people, they also depended on the Iron Age people who brought in a new technology, a new way of doing things. So on economy, they introduced trade, they introduced technology, making of iron implements, while them, the Stone Age, they were making the stone implements. Also pottery, farming. In that way, the Stone Age people, when they lived together with the Iron Age people, they learned on or from each other. So having arrived at this far, we have come to the end of this period, the first period of 4 periods that we are going to have when we'll be looking at Iron Age in Central Africa. So we have looked at how Iron Age was introduced in Central Africa, and we have looked at a number of elements. So next time, we are going to look at the Iron Age sites in Central Africa. What were those Iron Age sites that we have in Central Africa? So it's another good part that we are going to look at this. So it's in the next period that we are going to look at this. So until that time, thank you so much.